The gyroscope has the same property. If a gyroscope is set spinning on the equator with its spinning axis horizontal, in an east and west direction, it will appear to make one revolution a day, about an axis at right angles to the spinning axis. At the end of 12 hours, the gyroscope will appear to have reversed ends, though actually it will continue to point just as it did at the start. Only the Earth will have made a half revolution. Also, if a spinning gyroscope were carried around the Earth along a north and south meridian, passing over the two poles, it would constantly change its angle so that the horizontal spinning axis would always be at right angles to a vertical line from the Earth's center. In other words, if the gyroscope were at 50 degrees north latitude, the gyro axle would be at an angle to the Earth's axis equal to the degree of latitude, or 50 degrees, and also at an equal angle to a line passing through the center of the gyroscope, and parallel to the polar axle of the Earth. The performance of the gyroscope and pendulum can only be explained by the assumption that the Earth is a revolving sphere. Much of the zetetic proofs of the world's flatness consist of attacks on the spherical theory. For example, Voliva and his followers argue that an airplane pilot traveling 300 miles an hour would have to fall 60,000 feet an hour in order to maintain his altitude above a spherical world and keep from shooting out in space. Of course, they deny the existence of gravity, and the fact that an airplane maintaining a constant distance from the Earth's center is neither falling nor rising, but also the formula on which they calculate the rate of fall is not true. The formula is based on the well-known fact that the Earth's curvature is 8 inches in 1 mile. In other words, if 3 stakes of equal length are set up on water at distances of 1 mile, and a sight is taken over the tops of the 2 end stakes, 2 miles apart, it will pass 8 inches below the top of the middle stake, 1 mile away. But the Volivites go on to calculate that the drop increases as the square of the distance, and therefore that distance squared, multiplied by 8 and divided by 12 will give the drop from the horizon in feet for any distance. Actually, there is no formula in spherical trigonometry which can be used to calculate such a spherical triangle for any desired distance. That can be proven very easily by anyone who knows plane geometry, for it requires no knowledge of trigonometry to show the error in the formula. If you draw a circle with its equator and the vertical meridian, giving the north and south poles, and then draw a horizon line at the North Pole, you can prove the fact. A flyer starting from the North Pole and traveling to the equator would cover 6,000 miles if the globe is 24,000 miles in circumference. The diameter of a 24,000-mile globe is 7,639.69 miles, and the radius is 3,819.845 miles. So the drop from the horizon of the North Pole would be the same. But according to the Zion formula, if you square the distance of the flight, 6,000 miles, you get 36 million. Multiply that by 8, the curvature per mile, and you have 288 million. Divide by 12 to get the feet, gives 24 million. And divide that again by 5,280 to get the miles. And the answer is 4,545.45 miles, or an error of more than 725 miles. To have the drop which the Zion formula indicates, the Earth would have to have a diameter of more than 28,588 miles. The Zion formula also makes no provision for angles in the negative or positive sense, as measured in trigonometry. And if the flyer kept on past the halfway mark, it would show the drop continuing to increase, instead of decreasing. Until, if he returned to his starting point, the formula would show him to be 72,935 miles away in space. The Voliva prize probably will remain uncollected, unless some future space traveler someday anchors his ship a few thousand miles out in space, and takes a movie of a globular world turning on its axis. That seems to be the only way. The $5,000 can never be collected.